So now I have x equals 6, and the question was, what is the value of y? What will I do next? Plug it in. Where would I plug it in, Hannah? In the first equation that I wrote. That's what I would do. So I would just come back up here and I would say y is equal to 6 plus 2. So y is equal to 8. This one's going to be more challenging because it is I think this is the one that's going to be a system of equations. So why don't you see or think about what you can do to get that set up. 3y, oops. All right, 3y minus 2. That would be equal to the opposite angle, right? Aren't E and G equal? Equals to 12x plus 7. Okay, this is one setup. We can do others. I'll show you another way to set it up too. So that's one fact. And I've got two variables, right? One equation so far. So that's not going to be much help for me right now. But I also have angle H and angle F that are congruent to each other. So I can say y plus 10 is equal to 4x plus 13. Okay, now I have two equations and two unknowns. Did you have a question, Gabe? For Bradley?
Can you set it up y plus 10 plus 12x plus 7 equals 180?
Yes, and then you would use the other pair to do the, yeah. You sure could. So now I have a system of equations, right? And so I'm going to have to solve this. I'm looking at this system and I'm thinking, I like to do elimination whenever I can, but I don't think it's going to work here. So let's try, what I would do is I would probably try solving for y in my second equation because y doesn't have a variable in front of it. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. Oh, let me undo that. Let me erase. Put minus 10 here. So I'm lining up my like terms. Okay, I'm going to take this y equals 4x plus 3. And I am going to substitute this value right here, this 4x plus 3, in for this y here. So I'm going to pause and let you guys do that for a second. Are there any questions, though, on the setup? Another way that we could have set it up, and Bradley asked about it, was to take the two consecutive angles, like E and H, right? I know that E and H are supplementary, so I could say 3y minus 2 plus y plus 10 equals 180 and solve that way.
Are you recording this?
Yeah. Okay?
I record you talking.
Yep. And it just recorded you asking me if it's recording me talking.
I know you know that.
All right. That warm up. Now, let's try these two. Can you prove? I want you to take a minute to just look at, let's just look at part A for now and see what we think. So just digest that. Who wants to volunteer what they think about part A? Okay, Bradley.
I said the opposite sides are equal.
Uh-huh.
Part of it.
Yeah.
And then the two angles are supplementary and add up to 180.
Okay. Consecutive angles are supplementary.
Yeah.
Can we prove it's a parallelogram? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Because the sides don't match. Like, kind of.
You're on the right track with the sides, but I think you could say it better than what you're saying.
Like the sides don't like IJ should equal KH or even lower.
IJ should equal KH, and instead we have, I think you're trying to say, and yes, that's correct. IJ should equal KH, as well as HI should equal JK, right? Because those are the opposite sides. That's what you have to show is congruent. They've shown that adjacent sides are congruent in this picture. Okay? So just be aware of something like that. It looks almost like it could be parallelogram, but it's not. Okay, next we are moving into the properties of rhombuses, rectangles, and squares. These are special parallelograms. And I just want you to take note of the fact that a rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. And often you see a rhombus kind of like slanty like that. A rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. But look at not congruent sides necessarily, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that doesn't have to be. It could be, doesn't have to be. And then a square is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So really, what is a square? How does a square relate to the rhombus and the rectangle?
A square.
Say what, Peyton? It's kind of got both of what a rhombus and a rectangle are. It's like a combo.
It's like the baby.
So it's got both facts.
It's like your baby.
Yeah, it's like the baby. Good point, Kyle. The square is the, I don't know, the rectangle daddy. All right. Now, I want you guys to talk with somebody sitting next to you about this problem. Parallelogram ABCD, is it a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square? And explain. And you're going to write on your paper what your explanation is. So if I have diagonals of a rhombus, they are going to bisect each other. Like I said, if I told you that the measure of angle A was 60, you would tell me that the measure of angle 1 and measure of angle 2 are congruent and they're both equal to 30 degrees because they are bisected. Okay, so what I want to do next is figure out what are the measures of the numbered angles in rhombus ABCD. Okay, I am going to start with what I know, which in this case is that inside angle there is 58 degrees, right? I can find the entire measure of angle B, which is this whole thing, right, by doubling it. So I would do 58 times 2, because I know it's a rhombus. It tells me it's a rhombus right here in the problem. And I get 116 for all of angle B. That tells me that angle D is 116 degrees also, because if it's a rhombus, it's a parallelogram. Opposite angles are congruent. So angle D is equal to 116 also, which makes the measure of angle 2 equal to 58. The measure of angle 3 also equal to 58. Okay. And I can also use what I know about a rhombus to figure out what the measure of angle 1 is. What's the measure of angle 1?
90 degrees.
How do you know, Bradley?
Because the side and the back.
Good. The measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. And the reason why is because of what we saw earlier in that last theorem, or that first theorem about rhombuses. The diagonals intersect at 90-degree angles. They are perpendicular to each other. How about the measure of angle 4? That's going to be a little bit trickier because angle 4 is not related to angles B and D. However, I do know, I know that, let me change my color. Angle D and angle A, they're not congruent because they're not opposite, but they are consecutive. So that means that together they add up to 180. So the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle D equals 180. And I know the measure of angle D is 116. I found that right here.
Wait, the measure of angle what?
D.
Before D.
The measure of angle A. Are you trying to be a wise guy, Hannah?
No.
A wise girl? A wise girl once said, what? All right, so I know that the measure of angle D, so I did forget my A. The measure of angle A plus the measure of angle D, which we know is 116, is equal to 180. And I can solve by subtracting 116 from both sides. So the measure of angle A is equal to 64 degrees. Okay, that's all of A. How much is angle 4?
32.
Angle 4 is 30 degrees, 32 degrees. The measure of angle 4 is equal to 32 degrees, which is half of 64. Are there any questions on that problem? Because we did a lot of like spiraling thinking. Are you ready to try one? I'm going to say yes, you are. Okay, the rhombus part was given.
So, we saw that Q and R equal their supplementary.
Okay.
So we did 180 subtract 104, and we got 76, and we divided that by 2 to get 38. So angle 3.
So basically, slow down for a second. You figured out, Victoria did it by taking like the 180 times n minus root 2 gives you a 360 in the case of a quadrilateral. Figured out what the, we did it her way in blue. And now what you guys are saying is that you took the fact that Q and R are supplementary.
Yeah.
So you subtracted from 180, the 104 that you know, that left 36 or 76 for angle R, and then what?
We divided it by 2.
And then you divided it by 2, and you got
38.
38. And what did that represent?
Angle 3, 4, and then 1 and 2.
Good. So that represents angles 3, 4, 1, and 2. So 2 different ways to do it. They're both correct. All right. Angles. Remember we said that a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles, right? So we know that. What we can also know about a rectangle in particular, Peyton, is what? What are you getting out of this picture here that's on the board? Okay. What are you getting out of the picture that's on the board, Derek? Like, the diagonals are congruent. That's what's true about a rectangle. We'll use that a lot as well. Okay. We will also be using Pythagorean theorem with rectangles because of those they make right triangles, the diagonals being equal to each other. Okay. So we will be using both of those facts later on. So diagonals are congruent. That's the big idea. And that the diagonals are congruent. So here's how it's used. We're given that it's a rectangle, right? Part of the problem. So if I know it's a rectangle, I know that the angles are 90 degrees. I know it's a parallelogram. But I also know now that the diagonals are congruent, right? What does SF represent? Say what?
What?
Say
What?
the answer to my question. What does SF represent? One of the what?
No line.
A diagonal. Okay, so SF is a diagonal. What is RB? Also a diagonal, and we just figured expressions. Set them equal to each other. So 2x plus 15
Wait, this move.
equals what?
Isn't 8 in like the left corner?
Huh?
Is there an 8 in the left corner? Those they got cut off.
In the left corner. I don't see anything.
No, like it's like in between.
Oh, no, that was, just ignore that. Yeah, I did a screenshot to make and I didn't get it all the way cut off. All right, so I have this. The diagonals are equal to each other. I subtract 2x from both sides. You guys should do this as well. It shouldn't just be me because I actually already graduated. And 5x minus 2x is 3x. Add 12 to both sides. How about I do a notes check at the end of class? Make sure everybody's got this in their notes. That'd be fun. Good way to earn credit. Divide both sides by 3 and I get 9 for x. But that's not my question. My question is, what is the length of the diagonal? Not what is x. A diagonal, so I guess it doesn't matter which one I pick, right? So I will pick the first one. I'll pick this one. 2 times 9 is 18. Plus 15. And I get 33. So choice D. And why do you think they put choice B in there?
Because it wasn't an answer, it was just an X.
Right, and the kids will pick B all the time.
Yeah.
Probably that's the number one wrong answer. Okay, take a minute and try this one with your partner.
I'm like, why you kept looking at me? You kept looking at us.
Kyle, I would like to see you have the work done on your paper so that when you're studying, you can go back and say, how did I solve that again?
I got like bugs.
So I'm going to set it up saying that the two sides are congruent, or the two diagonals are congruent. I'm going to substitute in with the algebra. Hey guys, wait 1 second. Guys, you had homework. It's in Edmodo.
What? We have one today.
Right? Yeah. Didn't you see 2 documents when you were in there?
It's all right there.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Homework? Is it just as that we did today?
Yeah.
So what?
Okay, so x is 15, so MO, for instance, is equal to 30 plus 13, so that would be 43. And then it says what type of triangle is triangle PMN.